Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Wednesday, May 15th, 2019. Hope everyone's having a good work week. We've made it to hump day so far. Can't believe we're almost all the way through the week. The weekend is just around the corner. And let's get right with it tonight with our space weather news update first before we head into some articles. Our solar wind speeds are sitting at a 434.2 kilometers per second with a density of 9.1. Let's go over to the space weather section here at the grandsolarminimum.com. Taking a look at our planetary alignment. And we are on the weaker side of the magnetic field of the sun. And it's interesting where we are right now. It's starting to become a little bit stronger connection, but had some minor activity today, some more minor C flare activities. KP indices have died down in the last 24 hours or so. We're once again back to the 2. So we were expecting possible geomagnetic storm conditions today and tomorrow as well. So we'll keep our eye on that. And also there's that little bit of activity that we saw today that gave us our minor C class flare right there. So that's AR 2741 still kicking. Now 2740 was producing the solar flares as well, and we'll get more into that as we get into the broadcast. I got a couple things we want to touch base. Here we have a really bright spot coming from the far eastern limb at the very negative 180 spot of the backside of our star. So we will keep our eyes on that region, as that will probably see Earth-facing side somewhere around 12-13 days, I think, right before we get at least across the eastern limb anyway. And so that's that. Let's go to the TSI readings. We're finally starting to get consistency. This is for May 7th of May 6th, 2019. Came in at 1360.60. So from the last time we broadcasted on Monday, it dropped ever so slightly. Let's do this real quick, guys. We have I'm live, and bear with me. All right, that's a little better. Here we go. Looks like something from the Poltergeist movie there. All right, so let's move along here to first of all, our GSM Earth and Space news. Be alert for Steve. There's more geomagnetic storms than auroras. Sometimes a completely different phenomenon appears. It's called Steve. No relation to the photographer here, but the strange mauve ribbon arcing over Chilliwack, BC on May 14th. Now, we've seen Steve in many different forms. This is absolutely stunning right here. Steve is a hot 3,000 degrees Celsius ribbon of ionized gas slicing through Earth's upper atmosphere some 300 kilometers above the ground. It appears unpredictably during some but not all geomagnetic storms, originally thought to be a type of aurora. New research shows that it is not an aurora at all. The soft purple color of Steve may be caused by emissions from nitrogen, according to a new study just published in the Geophysical Research Letters. Its color and narrow ribbon-like structures distinguish it from regular auroras, which tend to be green and wide. Residents of Canada and northern tier U.S. should look for Steve this week after the CMEs hit, and let's move right into that. 5 Earth-directed CMEs, all right? It's been a busy week this week for geomagnetic activity and solar weather. A several degree-long solar filament, South Region 2741, disappeared by approximately 1514 UTC, May 13, 2019. Initial analysis suggests that Earth-directed component is likely with this coronal mass ejection. This is the 5th Earth-directed CME since May 6th. Solar wind parameters were indicative of a slow but mildly enhanced regime on May 13th. Talking about approximately 3:01 UTC, the May 14th, Discover spacecraft observed the unlikely arrival of a CME that departed the sun on May 10th. In reaction to the CME arrival, the BZ component began a period of sustained southward deflection near negative 15 NC. Total field strength increased slightly to 15. and wind speeds increased further than 550 kilometers per second. The KP indice was at 6 for G2, and then it reached at 5:45 UTC time on May 14th a KP of 7, which is a G3. That's a strong geomagnetic storm as of 8:59 UTC. Also, we want to point out too that later that day we had the 7.7 earthquake in Papua New Guinea. Potential areas impact partially poleward 50 degrees geomagnetic latitude. Power system voltage irregularities possible. False alarms may be triggered on some protection devices. On spacecraft, systems may experience surface charging, increased drag on low Earth orbit satellites, and orientation problems may occur. Navigation, intermittent satellite GPS problems, including loss of lock and increased range of air, may occur. Radio, high frequency, may be intermittent. And aurora may be seen as low as Pennsylvania to Oregon. Wow. So that's what happens on a G3. And then they show you what happens on a G6. And again, are we looking at serious impacts on a GT, G3? No. But this is interesting to talk about when you're talking about when you're in a solar minimum. You don't get a lot of these. So, again, these are stronger than usual, but nothing to be alarmed at or anything like that. We're not expecting any kind of catastrophic event from these CMEs. They're rather weak. Yes, they're happening. And, you know, that's something I want to point out, too. Where's that picture at? I mean, to me, this is an indication where we talk about grand solar minimum. Are we there yet, or are we heading to that? Do we still have another full cycle? And I know we've seen information that comes back and forth, and you know, first I thought we were all in it, and then, you know, maybe it was another cycle or two away, and then, well, maybe it's here. But I think what really is happening, in my opinion, is we are starting to see the beginning of this, and the beginning of it is already shocking. I don't think people expected it to be this bad in the beginning, let alone what this thing's going to do when we hit full-fledged grand solar minimum conditions. Right now, we are heading into a minimum, a deeper part of the minimum. And the sun, by giving off these CMEs, these G3 storms, to me, this just proves that we're going to do at least one more cycle before we see grand solar minimum conditions settle in. I could be wrong. I just report this stuff. But again, some of the stuff that we're seeing from our star right now is that this is not activity of a sun going into the grand solar minimum as in right now to be able to produce these minor flares. Not a big deal, but still this sunspot has, I think this is the third time now it's been around and it's been active. And I think each time it comes around, it has a different kind of phenomena that's happening around it. So interesting, but the activity is still minor. It's no alarm or any kind of indication of a strong solar cycle to come, but maybe just an observation that we're not quite done yet. We will see another cycle. And in the 2030s, that's when we might see a prolonged grand solar minimum like, you know, conditions. I know a lot of people's work is pointing towards the 2030s of this. A little bit more evidence that cycle 25 may be slightly stronger than 24. And that's not a big deal either, folks. Because 24 was the deepest we've had, or the lowest activity we've had, what, 150, 200 years almost? So this cycle coming up, again, this could be right on schedule, folks. Interesting to look at, but check out the article for yourself, watchers.news. Thank you once again. And just a follow-up here on the earthquake that Mari did a live show, and I kind of phoned in on this. No real update about if there was any damage or any casualties. At this point, we still haven't seen anything. They issued a green alert for shaking-related fatalities and economic losses, which is a low likelihood of casualties and damage was caused. So to this day, we don't have any kind of anything. Now, a lot of people felt the shaking, very strong. 18,000 felt that. Strong shaking. Over 230,000 people felt that. But a lot more felt weak and light. Over 600,000 people felt the weak and light. And if you add up from not felt through moderate, we're talking almost 800, right around close to 800,000 people who felt it. Very strong, about 250,000 for strong and very strong, and then severe, violent, extreme, nobody felt that. So big earthquake. Still no word if there was any casualties or any kind of damage at this point. I think we would have heard something by now. Again, this happened on the 14th, right after we got the, let's see, this was 12:58 UTC time. So this was after the G3 storm that we got on the 14th of May as well. So we just want to touch base on that real quick. Check this out. Severe floods hit Croatia, Bosnia, and Herzegovina. One person killed, several injured. And this looks like another Watchers link. It is. Good stuff. Prolonged heavy rain is causing severe flooding across central Croatia and Bosnia since May 12, 2019. That's 3 days now. One person was killed. Another one remains missing. Strong winds and heavy rainfall is affecting parts of Croatia and Bosnia since May 12, leading to deaths, injuries, and damage. At least 5 people were injured in Zagreb on May 13th while strong winds downed trees and caused power outages. Firefighters reported over 500 interventions and 300 rescues in Zagreb and its surroundings. One person was killed near the island of Kirk after his fishing boat capsized during stormy weather. Flood defenses were raised in the central towns, and I am not going to attempt that one, folks. That's a big boy word there for sure. If you've been well traveled, you could pronounce that. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, 5 municipalities declared a state of emergency. Classes in some schools were canceled. Traffic, electricity, and water supply were also disrupted. Hundreds of houses have been affected, authorities said late May 14th. Landslides blocked some of the roads in central part of the country, while floods destroyed a temporary pedestrian bridge near the town of Banja Luka. One person, a 6-year-old boy, fell into the swollen creek in the village of Bigov Han and is still missing, unfortunately. Rivers Sana, Una, and Asora rivers are causing the biggest problems, while authorities are urging people to remain cautious of the floods are not expected to reach catastrophic levels seen in the last exactly 5 years ago when the region experienced its worst flooding ever. On May 14, 2014, a stationary front positioned itself over Croatia, Serbia, Bosnia. Over the next 5 days, it dumped extremely heavy rain, leaving the region under widespread flooding, which forever changed the lives of tens of thousands of people. Now look at this map. I mean, we've literally talked about parts of the world underwater, large amounts of underwater, United States, here in Europe, India, Mozambique. I mean, just every part of the world you can imagine is receiving large amounts of rain, flooding, constant flooding. That is cosmic ray influx, causing multiple precipitation dumps like this. And again, if this is only the beginning, what are we going to do in 2020 and 2021? If these insurance companies, are they going to be able to handle the financial burden? All right, let's take a look here. This is an interesting story. Mari found this for me. Fox News. This is an interesting story, guys. I'm a little concerned, and then we need to read between the lines on this one. Henry Villa Zoo in Madison is without a prairie dog exhibit after the animals unfortunately didn't make it through the winter. WKOW reported out of nearly 20 animals, only one survived this winter. Zoo officials told WMTV with this the historic flooding in the summer and fall of 2018, the table rose, which restricted how far the prairie dogs could burrow in the ground to keep warm in January. The polar vortex brought record-breaking cold. According to the WMTV zoo officials, they said they were working to create a new prairie dog exhibit that is resilient during extreme weather climates. This is something that we really want to continue to have at the zoo, says Jess Thompson. Conversation education curator told WMTV, it's a really important species to us. And so we look forward into what this might look like. And we actually have removed our current prairie dog exhibit, knowing that it is not going to hold up to our future climate, and instead decided to expand the space for our bison so they have a bigger yard. No. No. Folks, read between the lines on this one. It's plain as day. They are going to get rid of the prairie dog exhibit because they know it's not going to hold up to their future climate, right? So they say they're going to expand the bison exhibit for a bigger yard. Mari's the one that pointed this out to me as well. Bison are cold weather animals. So this zookeeper, this representative here, is basically admitting that our future climate is not suitable for these prairie dogs anymore. In fact, we're going to have to get things like bison in here to withstand the upcoming winters. That's a good catch, and that's a big props and shout out to Mari. She's the one that found this article. And at first I saw it, but when I came home today, and I'm like, that's sad. Poor prairie dogs. But the biggest part of this story, and it's in quotes, and that's why I love it, it's at the bottom. You know, not everybody's going to read the quote part, right? I guess not. I mean, what does this person, now mind you, this person is an education curator. All right? They understand the climate, they understand their habitat, and they know that this was not a fluke. Now, another cry of outrage is that these prairie dogs that didn't make it through the winter, well, you know, it's a zoo. Why couldn't we move these animals inside when a couple of them started dying? So that's another story. But just really weird that this person's going to say that we've removed the current prairie dog exhibit knowing that it's not going to hold up to our future climate, and instead decided to expand the space for our bison so they have a bigger yard. Look, even if they were trying to say climate change, man-made global warming was part of this, how is that true? How is that possible? When they know they're putting bison, expanding it, because bison are going to be the only thing that withstands this kind of weather, because it's going to be cold in the future. Stunning. Outstanding find here tonight. Impressive to me that, like I said, read between the lines, folks. This person here believes that our climate is going to continue to get colder. And therefore, let's not even bring the prairie dogs back. Let's go ahead and just expand the yard for the bison. Yeah, right. Guys, we'll be right back.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.